Well, folks, I'm Dave.
And I'm Sean.
Together we are
Barstools and Bandtalk.
Oh, you beat me to it.
And Bandtalk. And just before we started the recording, I said, watch the leg, listen. So it's good that we're off on the right foot. Before we introduce our guests, I personally want to send a shout out to everybody that's been attending all the shows we've been promoting. They have been, we were just at Maximum Overdrive this past weekend, full house. Dress to Kill was a full house. Side Hustle. Everything that's happening right now is just amazing. We're really super stoked about it. The next one coming up, The Frequency. It's a rebook from December 5th. We've had 2 shows. There's a few tickets left for Friday night. Really looking forward to it. And I just, wanted to do a shout out to Monty's, Nancy Arrett, all the staff, Zach Lacey, Bruce Nelson, Steve Ruxton, the girls that work so hard to make sure that everything runs flawlessly. Sexy DJ Randy Man Candy. There's some magic happening in that room, and I'm just super stoked that we're part of it.
Absolutely. So on that note, this realm that we live in now, where we play bars like Monty's, and there's kind of a throwback to the old days. This next lady that we're going to bring on was instrumental in making those rooms fill up for so many different bands, whether it be local or international, that they had represented on their roster, that they brought in. And I'm just going to be real honest with you. I'm really excited to hear her story. It was a long time, to be honest, trying to get her on the show. She didn't think that anything she would have to say would have merit. And I begged her to disagree because she has a lot of merit, a lot of history. I think you're all going to be terribly informed when we bring on my good friend, our good friend. We both worked for in different bands, Elaine Coughlin. I'm pretty sure I refer to her as the queen of Agency 2000. Now let's see if she can live up to her royal roots here now. She's joining. She's coming. There she is.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Elaine. Thank you for being on our old show. It's great to see you.
Well, thank you. You too. You too.
It's been a long time for me. I mean, I moved to Toronto in 2000. I haven't seen you. Actually, I saw you once. A friend of mine was renting some of the inflatable games off Dwayne, and I gave him a hand bringing them back to your house, which we're not allowed to say where that is, but that was a very secret location.
Yes.
But that's the last time I saw you guys was in the driveway, and it was probably the first time in about 10 years. So it's great to you.
Yeah. We had that business for quite a while after getting out of the music industry. So it's good to us. Yeah, very good.
Well, you folks have been entertainment icons for, I don't even know how many years. Let's take us back to the beginning now, Elaine. So you and Dwayne are both from PEI, right?
Right. Yeah.
So how did
I
you
met
meet?
Dwayne.
I know the story, but I want to hear it.
I met Dwayne in 1968. I never got to see Dwayne on stage because I was too young, and I actually lied about my age. I told him I was 18 and I was 17, and he played in the bars upstairs. I wasn't old enough to go, so I never did get to see him. I just thought he was a nice looking guy, and talked to him in a restaurant. So that's how I actually met him. So I wasn't caught up in all the Google stuff of being on stage, right? Which was sort of a good thing. But, then I met him down at the Rollaway. That was the hot spot in Charlottetown. If you guys, for PEI, that's where we actually first met in our first date there. So, and we got married in 1970. And we went on the road with his band with Russ Brennan and Freddie Beaton from PEI, an amazing drummer, and Paul McDonald, keyboard player. And we toured all of Canada, bits of the United States for about a year. And we actually came here for a 2-week booking, or Dwayne, when I say we, I mean his band, to open the Matador. You guys remember the Matador, which ended up being Lucille's and Little Nashville and all of that. for 2 weeks. And yeah, Seymour Hoffman owned that place. And whenever Dwayne's band would leave and go over to play at the captain's cabin in Halifax, Seymour would get angry with him. And he was like, well, I got to play, So he booked him for 6 months.
Straight?
And that's why 6 months. Oh, every 2 weeks. I'm sorry.
Okay,
2 weeks for 6 months. Yeah, so he'd be in for 2 weeks, out for 2 weeks. So he bounced back and forth from a couple of bars back to the Matador. So that's how we ended up making Dartmouth our home.
Wow.
Yeah. So
a lot of people, and I didn't initially when I got involved in the 2000, I didn't know Dwayne's history as a musician, and then I figured out him and Russ and stuff. But Dwayne played for quite a while. Him and Russ played for quite a while.
Yeah. Well, he actually ended up how he got into going into be an agent. When he used to go over to pay his dues to Peter Power, who was the president of the union at the time. You had to pay your union dues. We all did. And a lot of the local bands, which were very good, could not get in. Back then, a few of the good bars would only take bands from out of town, and that's how Dwayne got booked, because he was from out of town.
Right.
So of course he got to know a lot of the local musicians, and they couldn't get in the bars. And Dwayne would tell Seymour, "Listen, these guys are every bit as good as we are. They're good." And so he started booking the bands, not being a booking agent and not taking any commission to get them in. And then it was Peter Power that talked him into getting his agent's license.
Wow.
So that was in 1971.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really, eh?
Yeah. So, and he started, I think it was Entertainment he worked on his own as DC agencies. Just out of the house, we had an office in the basement. And then he went to work for Entertainment Contact, and I think that was Skip York, Mike Shepard, Dwayne. I don't know who the fourth guy was, to be honest, because I wasn't involved in it. He was only there a short time, and he decided he really wanted to be on his own. I don't know. I don't remember the reason why. So he might have been there for 6 months, and he just thought, no, I'd like to go on my own, branched out. And that's when he went back to DC agencies, and then from there, into 2000. Yeah.
So what year was Agency 2000 started?
I think it was 82 or 83.
Okay.
Yeah. So so he had Dwayne toured, like he had Newfoundland. He did all of the CN hotels.
Oh, wow.
He actually, believe it or not, used to dress in shirt and tie in the day. But he did a lot of he didn't focus on Halifax. He focused outside, and Newfoundland especially. He would have 10 or 12 bands in Newfoundland at any given time. Yeah, it was unbelievable. Back then in the 70s, it wasn't unheard of. He'd send bands to Newfoundland, whatever. Yeah.
We often talk in the show about learning from Dwayne, because when Dave and I kind of, I guess it was 87 when we started playing. And I always remember Dwayne, we go in the office or he'd come out to see us play, and he had a rule. You were not allowed to leave the dressing room between the breaks. And if you did, he'd take over, he'd give you a talking to. And Dwayne sort of got behind that it created a little bit of mystique behind the band. It didn't give easy access to, if you're in the club. That's always stuck with me. I try to do it to this day. Talk about how, Dwayne, I remember Dwayne being a really good guy. You can go and talk to him about anything, but he mentored a lot of these folks that Dave and I grew up listening to, and then we kind of became and whatnot. So just talk about, some of that with what he did.
I'm not quite sure I know what you mean. Like what did
Well,
he do?
so just his mentoring, because Dwayne had a style where I never found him overbearing. I never found him, he wasn't a yeller, at least he was not to me. He always had great pearls of wisdom. And obviously a lot of it was him playing himself and figuring things out, but he just had a way with helping the young guys figure out how to be a pro.
Yeah, well, he always said, I know who I am. I think when he started booking bands and we had children, I think he put the idea of I want to be a rock star away. He said, you know, it's all about making a living for my family.
Right.
And I think he had, him being a musician, he loved the young musicians and the up and coming musicians, and he had get great pride in all of the Atlantic Canadians that were really, really good. And you know, he always believed it was just a matter of being put in the right place at the right time for a lot of good musicians. And when a band would come with him and leave, yeah, it would hurt him. But if they bettered themselves, he never, ever held any animosity. He always said, you know what, that's what it is. You know, you got to move on. But he just always, he never believed in drinking on the job.
I remember.
Yeah, it was an occasional drink, because, you know, it gives you a false sense of security. And he took his paycheck home, because I was like, yeah, right. You're not spending that in the bar. But no, he had rules for himself, and he would pass that on to the bands that come in. Now, whether some of them took them, you know what I mean? It's, you know, depends on who the band was that would adhere to any of that. But I mean, look, when we traveled on the road, some of the places we played at, and I remember going into one of the hotels and the band literally, I mean, you know, we were talking rock and roll back then, they put holes in each of the walls to the adjoining bedrooms so they could talk to the rest of the musicians. I mean, like, we're like, oh my God. But I mean, and we got the what for and not for when we arrived, thinking we were going to do this, but we were straight laced. But I'm like, no wonder sometimes they are upset with the musicians, because some of them really pushed the envelope.
Oh yeah.
You know,
That's
you
funny.
know, but it's rock and roll.
It
you
is
know.
rock and roll. And it was, but what's interesting though, Elaine, is because it is funny, because when I put that picture up there with the Zenith data system, I laughed my head off at that. But that technology was all brand new. Dwayne went off and forged relationships with every club owner, with every musician in person, shaking hands, gaining someone's trust. And I say Dwayne, you and Dwayne, you know, and not just you two. I mean, obviously when Hazing came aboard, and Marcel and Doug Kirby. I mean, it was old school, right?
Well, that Zenith system actually was Doug and Jones. When we formed Agency 2000, we had, you know, rented the spot there, and that happened to be their system, which of course we all shared at the time. So we all put our it was great, because put all the information in the computer system, so to speak. But yeah, and I think then Joan and Doug wanted to move to Ontario, so you know, that they made a life for themselves up there.
Yep.
One of the things that I remember that I think about it now, and it's, Dave and I are kind of doing it with this little platform that we had, but Dwayne booked you and he took that stuff. He had the PAs, he had all that. And then he had all these, I remember going to get photos taken, and he had all the pieces in place where literally you didn't even have to think about what you were doing.
Yeah.
It just happened. Talk about that a little bit. I remember all the different relationships with the photographer and the different sound guys and light guys. It was special.
Yeah, he actually bought, I remember him buying guitars for one of the musicians, or a set of drums. I mean, that wasn't unheard of, you know, to let the band have an opportunity to play. So these are things a lot of people probably didn't know that was done behind the scenes. I mean, obviously he didn't do it for every band, but when a band came and they had the potential of being a really good band, and what was holding them back is they couldn't get their photos. They didn't have clothes, stage clothes, or somebody didn't have a decent guitar. It wouldn't be nothing for Dwayne to go out and say, hey, listen, we'll take care of that. That's just what you do. You know, sometimes it's on the credit card. I didn't like it, but you know, it was just the way it was done, you know.
Yeah, it's true
Yeah.
that.
And back then.
Go ahead.
Go.
No, it's just, you carry on, because back then, that's what we're talking about.
No, I was saying, and back then too, remember phone calls were $1 a minute.
That's right.
So to be on the phone morning till night, I tell you, I mean, I kept a few of the bill. I mean, our bills were at $5,000 less a month. These are things the bands probably knew nothing about. Our rent was $1,700 a month in Halifax, and we had to pay for parking. So there's
In 1982
big
money
bills.
too, right? And that's 1982 money.
Yeah. I mean, we had a lot of bands, but I mean, when, things don't get paid and whatever, everybody runs behind. But you know what? We always said, as long as we can pay the bills, we were happy doing what we wanted to do, and we were employing people. And I think that's how we looked at it. We never looked beyond what we were doing at the time. It was a matter of, we can pay our bills and be here for next month, and keep our bands happy.
Before we
Well,
went
and I mean,
on,
you had a lot of bands on that roster. I mean, there was a list. I mean, certainly Dave and I were on there, but I mean, just talk about some of the bands that, that you guys had that a lot of people will go, wow, I remember these guys. I had no idea.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm not very good with names, but I do know there was one year alone, we toured 64 out of town bands along with our regular roster. I mean, Dwayne had a contact in the US, and so did Hazen. But I mean, as a matter of fact, I used, when I took over the international market with, when we went back to Coughlin Entertainment after Agency 2000, we toured so many bands, and there was nobody out of work. I mean, like, it was unheard of. Like, when you'd look at all these bands, and our local bands were working as well. But names, I'm terrible with names. I mean, everybody had access to Glass Tiger, Platinum Blonde, and all of those bands. Doug and the Slugs. I mean, whoever got the booking from the agency, whether it was Doug, whether it was Dwayne, whether it was Hazen, you did the booking. They were not exclusive down here. They had their agents in Ontario. So what you would do is you'd make the contact with the agent if your club wanted those bands, Powder Blues, whoever. So, and of course, Bobby told a lot of booking for a lot of, matter of fact, we were even doing some dates for, who's the guy there, the dark glasses.
Roy Orbison.
Yes, Hazen was constantly after Dwayne to do a Roy Orbison tribute, because Dwayne does his stuff. Okay. I mean, if you closed your eyes, you'd swear it was Roy Orbison. And Dwayne used to say, "Get out of here, Hazen." No. Oh, no, Dwayne, we'll put you on the road. Whee! Dwayne would be like, "Hazen, get out of here." But we actually even had dates for Roy, you know what I mean, at the time. So there was it's whoever the club owner wanted, they put the buzz out, and the agents try to scurry to get them,
So would Dwayne go off and meet these club owners in person? Like I talked with earlier, I didn't know if we got a little computer lag or not, because what I really appreciated about Dwayne was that networking, the human contact. So would he have gone off and met all these club owners in Newfoundland, in Northern New Brunswick?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. In the day, he actually hired Marcel. Marcel worked with us for years because he was French. Marcel had a band called, I think it was Blue Rain. I'm not 100% sure on that. But Dwayne booked Marcel's band for a few years, and Marcel was wanting to come to Halifax. And Dwayne just thought, you know what, he's a good guy. He speaks French, and that'll keep my connection in New Brunswick. And it did. Because, even though it's doing the booking, but just to have that language barrier taken down, it was great. So, but yes, in the beginning, we'd get in the car, both of us, and we'd go stay in hotels. He'd meet these guys. We stayed at Jimmy Sandalis, his home, him and Joan's home, a few times actually. But I mean, again, then they deal with you for a couple of years. They go with Hayes, and that's just the way it was. And then, if you had a band they'd come back. Yeah. So everybody had their clubs. Like Hazen was the Misty Moon, Dwayne's was the Matador, and then of course Seymour also had the Palace. So Dwayne actually booked for Seymour, which was the Matador, the Palace, and the Choo Choo. I think it was the Choo Choo or whatever, 3 bars, whatever, going at the same time. So I mean, that's serious stuff back then.
Yeah.
So, but
Well,
see,
you know, a good question
Seymour,
I got for you, Elaine.
I'm sorry, what?
Well, the question I have is, you get me thinking. So all you guys are under one roof, and then, you know, Marcel kind of does this thing, and Hazen does this thing. At that time, was there enough going on that 3 separate kind of entities could handle all the booking, and everybody could have their business? And I remember everything being cordial. That's what I remember. I don't remember any cutthroat
Oh
stuff.
yeah, no. I gotta say, we did. I mean, I and this is, I think, what the bands didn't realize. They thought the agents probably were at each other's throats. I mean, it's like any business. You don't share all of your information.
Sure.
But I think there is, at least for us, there was a mutual respect for other agents. I honestly don't recall Dwayne ever saying anything bad about any of the agents. Hazen had a way of never telling the truth about the money. And we all knew that. But he was like, and Dwayne said, why would you do that? Look, Dwayne, he said, well, I actually called him Coughlin. I just put my head in the noose until it starts to tighten. And then and then he'll run away.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, is that bad, or was that Hazen just wanting to please his bands? That's how he dealt with it. If they were getting 3,500, he'd tell them 3,550. And the band would come in and take that $50 off of our commission because he told them. And then Dwayne would say, and I'm taking it off of your paycheck, Hazen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jackie made a good point early on in the show when we first started doing the show, and he talked about a scene in what I guess we call HRM right now, but you could literally have 17 places to play in Dartmouth. You could have another 20 places in Halifax. You had 3 or 4 in Bedford, another 5 or 6 in Sackville. I mean, so you had enough work not to even leave HRM to keep you on a rotation.
Almost every corner had a place to play, literally, in Halifax and Dartmouth. Unbelievable. It was just a booming city for entertainment. It was the place to be, actually.
So what do you think changed? What do you think changed it?
I'll tell you, when I first noticed the change, I think when the DJs come out first, that put a change in it. And then karaoke. I remember one of our best friends had come back from Florida, and we were on Prince Albert Road there. Dave, you remember there?
Yeah, I lived there. Yeah.
And he talked about going out to see this karaoke. We couldn't even say it at the time. We were all mispronouncing it. And he said, this is going to be the biggest thing that ever hit Halifax. You guys should get on this. We never paid attention to it right at the time. But then there was the karaoke that came in. And then once they put the VTLs in the bars, they didn't need the bands to draw the people in. The VTLs were paying for the rent, which was, and that's where our union, and I'll say this, failed us. As musicians, paying dues allowed somebody to literally steal your business right from underneath you. That's my opinion. And I saw the change. Listen, Newfoundland, it took 6 months. I think I documented it when we were working, to literally almost close down from having bands. It was unbelievable. Then they were doing weekends. Well, you can't survive on weekend, you know. We were lucky because we were in it for so long, and we had bought a house early on, so we could hang on with our fingertips at the time. But it was sad. You know, I remember saying, I never, ever in my wildest dreams ever thought I'd almost see an end to the music industry as we're seeing it. It was sad, very sad.
There's ebbs and flows of that, though, right? Because I mean, we kind of went through it this past year where nobody could play because everything was shut down and different sorts of things came up. I think we're kind of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and the people that kind of innovated and did different things are having some success. But it's eerily similar. And I mean, I know in early 2000s when, you know, the smoking bylaw came out, and then they cut back the VLTs in the bars. So all the things that they threw out there that were making them successful without bans, they're now being taken away, and they've got to kind of figure it out again. So it's kind of a reverse of what you're saying, but my kind of whole thing in it too is just how I don't want to beat up on the government too bad, but sometimes they just don't do a good job at taking care of an industry, puts an awful lot of money into the economy.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and I see a little bit of that light, you know, coming back when I watch hear about the different bands playing. And I think it's wonderful that, you know, and hopefully it'll come back in some form for the new and up and coming bands. Although they won't have the big Martin system.
No, Jesus,
No.
Thanks the Lord, dying Jesus.
Yeah.
That's a clever segue. Let's get into that for a second, because to Sean's point earlier, the thing that was kind of unique about Dwayne and what he did with Agency 2000 is he saw the bigger picture, probably because he was a player himself, and he understood, like Russell Brennan did with Music Style. He saw the opportunities. Hey, we'll have the long-term rentals for folks who can't get gear. We'll make it affordable for them, or a means to get acquiring the gear that they need. But a lot of times we were show bands in the 80s. We had huge light shows, huge PAs, because it was more like a concert venue every time than just playing, weekends as a duo. So you guys came up with that idea through R&R Rentals that you could have the opportunity to have a great sounding PA system with a wonderful light show and a truck that was all provided by the agent for another fee, without question.
Yeah, no, he made it affordable, and that's what he thought. Well, put them on the road, because a lot of bands were starting to break down. They didn't have they were either renting, and it was costing them a fortune to rent. So he thought, maybe I can do this with, getting it. He got it. Do you remember, were you around when we had the Hino trucks? Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, the money he spent on them, it was just like an oil well going out the door. They just broke down all the time. But he finally got rid of the Hinos, and he bought brand new Ford trucks and passed the keys to all these musicians. But yeah, we had the top ripped off of one. I'm sure you guys know.
What?
Look, I've got a story for you.
We won't say who did that, though, right?
Sean may have been in that band at the time.
I got a story for you, Elaine, and you'll love this. So we won't say who, but you remember the incident.
Yes.
So I remember one of the guys called me saying, this happened yesterday with the Cube van. I'm like, well, how bad is it? Oh, well, it's a little damage at the top. I'm driving to the Misty Moon because we're playing the Moon, and one of the guys is standing on one of the top of the speakers through the roof. I'm like, okay, well, that's not good. So Wayne comes to the club, and he says, I need you guys to play these bunch of dates. And it's like, I don't want to play those dates. He took me in the office. He goes, you got to help me out. Somebody did a very stupid thing. You didn't have anything to do with it, but you need to help me. And I'm like, okay, I get it. So I was part of that. Yes, I was. I didn't do it, but I was part of the laughing stock for the
Yeah. It that was not good. I mean, it was like, who drives under an underpass that tells you can only get 8 feet and you've got 10?
Oh no, darling. It was the liquor store. Don't kid yourself. It was the underground liquor store parking in Spryfield.
Okay, we heard. I had no food. I had to go out and get food. That's what we heard.
Oh, yeah, whatever.
35 years later, you're getting the truth. But,
yeah.
But I do remember that. And I just remember that, we used to go out. We had great gear. We had great transportation.
Yeah.
We were playing some of the best rooms. And the other thing I remember, if there was ever a problem, Dwayne fixed it. And I remember playing some clubs where, somebody might not have given you your full cut, and it always happened. So that was a huge part of the deal.
Yeah. Oh, I can recall Dwayne being on the phone very late at night, and a club owner, I won't name who, they were going to fire the band. And Dwayne would be furious. I mean, him being a musician, he would know what this band can do. and they'd say, the club owner would say something like, they're terrible, they're no good. And Dwayne say, listen, no, they're not. They are good. And I'm telling you, I'll break my guitar first to say this band is not good. And if you fire them, you'll never get another effing band from me.
Oh, wow.
You know, I'll cancel everything. And, you know, I mean, he put his reputation on the line.
Don't think
And-
Hazen did. For Sean, we get fired everywhere as we win, so I don't think we had that same representation.
But I mean, you know, sometimes you'd have to say that, because club owners, if the band didn't pack the place in some bars, the first, they'd want to fire them. And, you know, not they, a particular club owner would want them. And he'd say, you can't do that. You know what I mean? You have to advertise. If the people don't come, that's not the band's fault. If the people come and they stay, then they've done a good job. But if they're not coming, you can't fire a good band and say they're crap, you know. So he'd have a conversation. Sometimes he'd win, sometimes he'd lose. But I do recall many conversations of him being an agent, of putting his reputation on the line, and he'd know the difference because he's a musician himself.
Yeah. And
he wouldn't let the bar owners just shit all over a band. They may not want them, and maybe they didn't, you know, do a good job in their eyes, but don't say the band's not good. This is how Dwayne would stand his ground as a musician. You know, bands wouldn't know that, though. I mean, you don't go back and share that to the band at the time. But that's how R&R was formed, is to give the bands availability to good gear. Luckily for Dwayne, him and Russ were good friends. So Russ and Music Stop, you know, cut a good deal for Dwayne with and the reason for R&R, Dwayne's name is actually Russell and Russell. So it's R&R. That's what the R&R stands for.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure other people had said other things.
Reckon return, I remember, but I don't know.
I heard that too. You don't want to acknowledge that in the day, but that's, you know, and you know, for the most part, only a few that would do that. I mean, you know, musicians are not bad people, so we won't paint them all with that bad brush.
Dwayne had one rule, I remember. It was a 3-part rule, especially if you come to the house. It's like, don't go near my wife or my kids, don't touch my pipe, and stay the fuck out of my motorhome. That was his rules. That was, if you follow those rules, you're gonna do okay.
Yeah, you're gonna do okay. That's right. That's right. That's very true. Very true. He, you know, he loved his girls, and you know, and there was a lot of musicians around the house, so we worried because we did have girls.
Yeah.
You know, Karen being the younger one, she ended up going into business in a different way. She went into musical theater and ended up moving up to Toronto quite well for herself, and then wanted to be a mama. She got married, and she's in a band now with a good friend of her, Michelle. They have the ABBA band.
Oh, nice.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, but 99% of their dates are in the States. They're not down there now, of course, because of that. So she has it's a pretty soft cedar. When I put some of her, I'm like, wow. Twain never played like that. You know.
Does Lori sing too, or no? Does Lori sing?
Yes,
well?
Lori's a beautiful singer. She doesn't want to be on stage, but she certainly got the pipes. You know, she more of a business person, I guess. But Karen I don't know if she wanted to be in a band per se, but musical theater was where her heart was. But she's done some major concerts where they just call her and she do something out west and they fly her out, you know. She's actually friends with Joan Kirby's son.
Okay.
I don't know what's his name, but she's often said so she hooks up with him, I guess, every now and then. She's got a lot of friends. She's got.
Well, that must be neat, Elaine, just to see the second generation, I guess, because my son is actually in the music business now. He's a hip hop artist and he produces. And I didn't actually see it coming. He just one day played me something. I was like, wow, that's very good. It must be neat to see the second generation of Coughlins out there, you know, doing the family business.
Well, it is, because we sort of never paid attention to Karen either much. I mean, because we were so involved in our own lives that she could sing, but we never paid attention to her. until she won an award in Halifax by
Oh, geez.
submitting a little demo tape. And Dwayne never took her in the studio, and she won it. And it's like, oh my gosh, why didn't you ask me to put some effects on it? She said, I did, Daddy, but you were always too busy.
Aww.
Oh no, but she won it on her own merits.
Good.
So we said, you know what? She sang into a little recorder. Somebody said she actually wrote a song for Canada. It was called Canada, My Country.
Oh, nice.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
But she, she lives in Ontario, and she's got 2 little boys now, and she's had her, like she said, she was also very lucky to be in the business that she was in. She was never out of work, and she changed agents and actually called her father and asked for advice, and he said, well, my advice is, if you do it the right way, it's still going to hurt your agent, but they'll get over it. A big agency wanted her. They had a bigger, pond.
Right.
And he told her, he said, you know what, you have to move on, or you're going to, yes, that agent did you well, and make sure you let them know that. And she did. And she's friends with that agent still today, but she did move on, and she got some bigger breaks. She worked on the Disney Cruise Line. She played Belle for 6 months, I think, with them.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and
You
now,
can't, you know what, Elaine, you can't sell yourself short either, because I mean, to many people in the industry, I mean, the early 90s, it kind of died up and people start getting, I did start having families, you kind of get off, you kind of lose contact with everybody. But it didn't stop for you guys, because after HC 2000s, well, I don't call it demise, but once that ship stopped sailing, you started the Coughlin Entertainment, right? Where you started doing the flotation devices and the glow parties and that kind of stuff. So
we still actually book bands. We hired John Geddes. He's a guitar player. I don't know if you know him.
no, very well.
Amazing guitar player. He actually worked for us for a few years, and do booking of bands. Dwayne and him would do booking of bands. I did the international. I actually sent a few bands to places like Dubai, and I did a lot of guitar players in the European market. Did that for, I think, 5 years. So Dwayne said, here's your niche, you go with it, because I don't have time, because he was researching then the inflatable games industry, which we didn't have a clue about. Do you remember Gordy owned the bar in Summerside? Okay. Yep. He had 2 lawyer friends that bought the first blow-up sumo suits. They contacted Dwayne and asked him to buy them. They said they saw them in Australia. Anyway, Dwayne searched it up and said, yeah, okay, I found them. They were $12,000 US at the time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we had, because they were shipped to us, and that's why we knew the price. So the whole thing of getting these sumo suits was, we were going to book them, send out a speaker with them, and take a commission. But on what was after we took our cut and we sent somebody else out to take their cut, there wasn't much left over for these guys for that investment. So after a couple of years, Gordy had asked Dwayne if he wanted to buy the sumo suits. Well, he didn't want sumo suits. I book bands, whatever. But anyway, Gordy hounded him. He said, Dwayne, I don't know what to do with them. So we give him a really good price, and we bought them. And that's how we started in the inflatable games. Then researched, and he got a Velcro wall and the bungee log run. We started out 3, and I think when I sold the company, we had something like 64 or 68 inflatable games.
Is that right?
We had 3 cotton candy machines, snow cone. When we had our grandchildren's birthday parties, we put a full-fledged carnival on.
Oh, wicked.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And it was a fun business. And we actually, sometimes they'd ask for a band. If we were doing a major event and they wanted a band, we put a band in, or a magician, so we still kept, our hand on the pulse, or,
Sure.
with the entertainment.
Yeah.
But there wasn't much going on with it. So unbooked the bands, and then finally there was just not enough to keep even him going, you know. So, yeah. But that's how we got into the inflatable games, and that ended up being a wonderful company for Dwayne and I, and he loved it. And we probably would have been retiring about now, maybe, but you know, left.
So you did that when what you said you sold the company, but so how long did you do that? When did you guys kind of wrap it up?
Oh gosh, we were in that for almost 20 years, believe it or not. Yeah, yeah.
You went from Coughlin Entertainment to the big entertainment, is that right?
And it's funny, and Dwayne, we figured someday we'd want to sell the company because it was growing. It outgrew us. We started out just wanting to make a little extra money, like, you know, we had owned our home. We said, you know, we have to make some money. Didn't want to get into the children's bouncers at all. We wanted the bouncy ball. We were doing, I started going out and doing presentations, having meeting with high schools. And believe it or not, I started what they call Safe Grad Night.
Oh, wow.
I did. I had meetings with all of the high schools here, and I said, listen, kids are going out after the grad, they're in cars, and you're starting to see deaths on the road. Why don't we do something, keep the kids in the school and have a fun night, a games night? And that's really how it started with these. So we started going out with just 3 games in schools, and we put a package together. And sometimes we put a hypnotist in as well. They'd have the hypnotist before, they'd have the games, whatnot, and they'd have food. So it was great. But all of a sudden we were researching, and Dwayne was adding in it. Of course, he always wanted shiny and new. So every year we'd add a couple of new games. And then it was outgrowing us. So Dwayne said, well, we're going to have to sell this company, and we don't want our name attached to it.
Right.
You know, for somebody else, they don't want Coughlin Entertainment's name. So he came up with Big Entertainment, and you know, it's the big is for big inflatable games. So it was a wonderful logo for us in the end. And the 2 people that bought it actually worked for us here and there. They had other jobs, which I won't mention. But they ended up buying the company from us, or from me. I'm sorry. Dwayne had already talked to one of them before he had passed, and said that he would sell it to him when he's ready to sell it. And he ended up getting a partner, you know, that he actually with. So it worked out well.
No,
Yeah.
listen, I certainly don't want it to be, you know, like because I'm having so much fun talking to you, Elaine. I don't want to bring down the mood, because you know, I love you guys. Like, I was there constantly at that office, and it broke my heart to hear about Dwayne's passing. You know, in that picture, you have Doug Kirby, Dwayne Coughlin, and Hayes the Horseman no longer with us. You know, and I don't know if everybody knew that. I don't know if a lot of people knew what happened. You know, because they kind of lost touch, right? Can you talk about that a little bit, if it's okay, if you want to?
Yeah. No, with Dwayne, it was very sudden. He was quite healthy, and he went in. His blood count, he had enzymes in his blood, and we got our blood work done every year, and was called in. And when he had his a colonoscopy then booked, they found something on him, and they said it could be fixed, not to worry. And but when they had the CAT scan, they said it was all through him. They actually gave us 2 weeks to 2 months at the time, which was like getting hit with a baseball bat for me, and I'm sure for him too. But we got 17 months. He went in a trial, and that's why he sort of kept it private, because we were still running the business.
Sure.
And you know, you don't, and I gotta say, he had his faculties right up until the very end. I mean, we lived at the hospital. He was getting chemo 3 days a week. And then he was in a trial as well. And I think being in a trial, he had colorectal, which I never even heard of at the time. Now it's funny when you have something, it's like having a car and you never see that car, and all of a sudden you buy one and every second car is that.
Yeah.
Well, the colorectal, I never heard of that kind of cancer before, and then all of a sudden You're hearing it all the time. And I'm like, had he had a colonoscopy 2 years prior, which he was asking for, he'd have been here today. It was a curable cancer, except that when it's left to, it's a sad thing, you know. He didn't want to go. Yeah.
I'll tell you another memory I have with Dwayne. It's going to sound really funny, but I remember one time eating chicken noodle soup, and I don't know if you remember this or not. And so I kept, what are you doing? He goes, this is how I'm losing weight. So it's like I would eat chicken noodle soup. True story. So just one of the things to stick with you, right? That you just, you know, that you remember. It has nothing to do with music, nothing to do with anything. And I hated chicken noodle soup, but I ate it. Like, you know what I mean?
I will say, when he put his mind to anything, he would do it. You know, it's like giving up smoking. He gave up cigarettes. He did go to the pipe, and then he gave the pipe up. You know, just like that. He had a strong constitution whenever he wanted to do something.
Well, listen,
But you know, he liked his food. You know, that's the day.
well, I know the conversations that I've had with him over the years. You know, he loved
You broke up, Dave. She couldn't hear you, bud.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of a weird connection here. So the conversation, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
We'll wait for it.
Anyway, Elaine, so great to see you.
We don't need to listen to Dave anyway.
Hey, I was trying to pay a compliment. I'm back now. Here's a compliment now. I spent a lot of time talking to Dwayne, and what you know, like I said, his biggest joys in this earth were you and those two girls. You know, and I can tell you that verbatim because I did. I spent a lot of time in that office talking to him, and you know, getting advice because to Sean's point, he was a mentor to all of us. You know, in a lot of ways, as future fathers, as future husbands, as future whatever, as musicians or business owners. He was a real good guy, and you were a real awesome lady. You know what I mean? It's like, don't sell yourself short. You freaking ran that place, right?
Well, I don't know about that. I think he still was the boss. Maybe.
When you let him.
No, he was a good guy, and he had a very quick temper, but he was very forgiving. You know, very forgiving.
I have one more Dwayne story that I want to share with you because it's one of the things that I remember being in a band, and the band kind of split up, and I was kind of attached to one person in the band, and we weren't playing at all. And I remember another band wanted me to play, and Dwayne told me, and I'm like, I can't do this to my bud. And I remember him calling me and taking me in and basically saying, you have this opportunity, and if you don't take the opportunity, both of you are going to miss out on something. And so it convinced me to do it. And then within weeks, that person actually wound up getting another opportunity. Always stuck with me. And don't kick the can. Don't do it. Always stuck with me. That's just one of the things that you know, you remember from when I was probably 18 or 19 at the time, right? So
yeah, no, he doesn't like anybody to miss out on an opportunity. That's one thing. As I said, that even with daughter, that's why he told Karen, you have an opportunity, as long as it's handled properly, move on, you know. You know, he was happy with his life. You know, he played, look, we were lucky. He played every night of the week at first, get up in the morning, go down in the office till 6 o'clock, lay in, have a nap at supper, have a nap, shower, and then on stage. Because back then, you played every night of the week.
Oh, yes.
You know, he went 6 nights a week. And then we'd head to PEI for the weekend to see his parents, you know, and my family. And then right back on Monday morning again, you know. If the kids weren't in school, we would do that. But yeah, you know.
Elaine, any regrets?
Oh my God, no. I'm blessed. I mean, this industry, I mean, we're the lucky ones. I mean, I say it's a private club, you know, being a musician, and it's a family affair. There's just, you know, when I think of all the good ones we've lost, and all of them, they're gone far too soon.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a beautiful life. I mean, I've been very blessed, you know, and it was an exciting time. You know, who else?
Absolutely.
You know, you go out and you play. It's just making people happy.
Yeah.
You know, whether you're a bass player, a drummer.
What does that mean? What does that even mean? Oh my
Oh.
God.
Well,
Dave, I don't know if you know, but Dwayne started out as a bass player.
Good.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll start out as a mogul entertainment
He did.
industry capital.
That was his, when I met him, he was a bass player. And the reason he started playing guitar was that, and Russ was his guitar player on the road, and Russ wanted to come back to get off of the road. So Dwayne had an Ontario guitar player filling in for Russ after Russ left to finish out the year. And when he came here and he lost his guitar player, he couldn't find a guitar player that was good enough, because when you're playing with Russ Brennan, he's one of the best. You got to find a good guitar player. So any guitar player, he never considered himself a guitar player. He said, I can play guitar every bit as good, but there was lots of bass players. Sorry, Dave. So he ended up taking over guitar and hiring a bass player, which I think was at the time, and he worked at Music Stop. Brian, his last name, Brian, his wife, they actually did a sketch of my girls, Brian. He's a bass player. Little glasses. Brian.
not born.
No. Oh my God, I can't even think of his name now.
Well, and nowadays we have to settle for bass players because there's too few of them. So go figure.
Oh, really?
Welcome to my world. Welcome to my world.
Such
I want
an asshole.
to say this. I'm glad we did this. And so I started playing professionally at 17 years old, barely graduated high school and went out. And you guys, your family, your business was a huge part of my early, cutting my teeth and stuff like that. And as we're talking, there's a whole lot of stuff that I realized that I took from those years that I actually still apply in my life today. So I want to thank you guys for that. I want to thank you for doing this little old show that we do.
Oh, you're sweet.
And we gotta hang out sometime, Elaine. It's been way too long.
Well, I see you guys on stage. I do check on you, so I should, some night I'll surprise you and walk in there, and you'll be like, "Yeah, right."
Should.
Well, we may be looking for an agent, just saying.
Yeah, well, I can send you away. I can get my contact and perhaps never take you back.
We'll go away. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Some folks would like us to go away, so there you go. But Elaine,
Yeah,
listen,
yeah.
you're one of my favorite people on earth. You know that. I was so glad to see you just after so many years, and I just thank you so much for coming on the show. It means a lot to Sean and I know it's gonna mean a lot to people who watch this, okay? Because you touched a lot of lives, not just Dwayne and Hayes and and that crowd. You did, because you were the voice on the phone. When my band broke up, I was in the middle of St. John, New Brunswick somewhere. You picked up the phone, you got me home, and I didn't know I was gonna get home. I was, to Sean's point, I was 19 years old, so I'm gonna hitchhike, you know what I mean? So there's so many memories that you helped us out so much, and I think the industry owes a debt of gratitude to you folks and what you guys have done.
Oh, you're so kind. You're so kind.
It's so
Thank
true.
you.
I don't want to do the Columbo, but I just thought of one more Elaine Coughlin story that I just have to impart, and it was one of my favorite things. The Christmas parties were great.
Oh my God.
I always remember the Christmas parties were awesome, but I always remember we get mail from girls on the road, and Elaine would be like, "Who are these girls that are sending you mail?" And it'd be like, you get your stack of mail, and it was almost like you'd want to go in and get your stack of mail, and it was always Elaine that would hand it to you. And I just little things that I don't know if you remember that or not, but
No, probably. I do recall things like that, but I do recall girls calling and asking for phone numbers. I'm like, I can't give you that information. And you guys would probably like it, but I'm like, no, they could be a star. Yeah. And I'm sure they call me a bitch a lot, but I'm like, I can't give that information.
Like, some girls send her underwear. She's a whore.
Yeah. But thank you for repeatedly covering my sorry butt on a regular basis. So
yes.
Oh yeah, we protected you. No problem there.
She knows where the bodies are buried, but she won't say it, and that's awesome. Listen,
I heard of the Newfoundland stories of the, I think somebody put something up a tap once, like,
Oh, anyway, so on that note, it's great to have you on the show.
my phone's ringing. It's gonna go.
yeah, ground beef.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Sounds like a Corner Brook Bathhouse story, but we can't go there. So
yeah, okay.
yeah, there's my phone. Yeah, what's that? Okay, Mom. Yeah, I'm gonna go home.
Yeah, right.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for doing this, Elaine. It's great to see you.
Thank you, guys.
And
Nice.
We need to see you soon.
Yeah,
We need a show or something really soon.
in person.
Nice.
Love
Thank
to see
you.
You take care.
Peace out.
Peace out, okay?
Barstools